We're speaking to Dr. Teh Su Thye this morning. He is the CEO of Global Peace Foundation Malaysia. Good morning, Dr. Teh.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Now, first of all, Dr. Teh, can you tell us a little bit more about how the Communities Unite for Pure Water, or CUP project, come about?
Yeah, sure. So the Communities Unite for Pure Water is an initiative to provide access of clean water to underserved communities in Malaysia. When we got started, a colleague of mine actually alarmed me that there are communities, especially orang asli, kampungs, that have still no access to clean water. I did not believe, I was very doubtful until my friend took me to a village. This village is called Kampung Binjai, located at Pekan district of Pahang. So when we got there, it was a very, very humble village with wooden houses, quite dilapidated. And we asked the villagers about their water source. And they were kind enough to walk us to their water source, which took us about 5 minutes, to walk through rubber plantation. And when I saw their water source, is actually a hand dug well. The water didn't look clean at all. It were sediments, dirt, leaves, insects, a bit murky. And I was quite stunned that that's their water source. Yeah.
So they were harvesting rainwater with the well?
Not really. So it's groundwater, right? Many years ago, when I was a young kid, we grew up with well. But now, you don't see any house with well anymore, even in the rural area. But the orang asli communities that we work with, their water source is not only far, but is also unclean. And after knowing that, that the water is not clean and safe for drinking, because it's exposed, any water source that's exposed, you can have things that drop in, you can have animal contamination. And it's a lot of trouble also, because the women are the one who has to fetch water every day. They go multiple trips, to carry heavy buckets of water. So after seeing that, talking to them, we realized that, okay, this is real and we've got to do something. Yeah. So since then, we've developed our Communities Unite for Pure Water.
At that particular time, you weren't into the water business, or in a way, were you doing something?
We were doing quite a number of volunteering programs, but mostly, providing learning activities for children, and so on. Yeah.
I see. So from your website, I read that to date, Global Peace Foundation Malaysia has done 56 water projects. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you choose which communities to help? Do you see that they are in really dire situation, or maybe you look at the demographics? Do they have a lot of children there? How do you choose which communities to help?
Yeah. So in the fact is, we've helped more than we actually lost count. Like, I think easily over 70 different villages and communities. The way how we choose which community to work with is basically doing needs assessment. So how we actually went from Kampung Binjai, our first village, to over 70 different villages is, after we've helped this village, we'll ask them, like, do you know any other communities that are also struggling with access to clean water? And they would have relatives in other villages, and the orang asli would bring us, from village to another village. And so the needs assessment is it's all about understanding their water source, the distance of the water source, the quality of water that they are consuming. So we would do basically physical observation, and we will also conduct focus group discussion, basically gathering the community, especially women, because they are the water bearer, and ask them, how does the water quality and what distance to the water source affect their life? And once we determine that it is a challenge for them, we would start designing, our programs to help them. And a lot of these villages are smaller villages. They are called kampung sepihan, or in English splinter villages. And located at the fringe of forest or in the middle of plantation. And we also realized that the villages in Pahang, especially Pekan and Rompin side, they have more issues with water access because there are fewer running stream. They are geographically is also quite flat, so you have less hills and mountains with clean, source of running water, and thus they have to resort to underground water, and that's well and digging a pond, and those water are easily contaminated. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about the approach your organization took in helping these communities. It's not as simple as just installing them a water filter or a well or just, clean water. How did you approach this cup project?
Right. So every village is kind of different a bit, in terms of their water source, distance, the quality of water. We started with providing them with water filtration system. That's something that's most immediate, right? If the water is contaminated, we're talking about muds, we're talking about animals, basically very high quantity of bacteria in the water. So we would deploy water filtration system that are very easy to use. So we currently we're using a water filter called LifeStraw Family 2.0. This is, it's a household water filter system that's very easy to use, doesn't require electricity, and very easy to maintain. There's one button to push every time they use it to backwash. It uses an ultra filtration membrane that effectively remove 99.99% of bacteria, viruses, all these particles in the water, so that it is safe for drinking and cooking. So that was our first approach to ensure that their drinking water is safe and clean. And then we realized that many of these communities are also suffering from health issues related to personal hygiene. There are villages that, we saw kids and even babies having rashes and skin infection. Even adults are complaining about the same thing. They're telling us about diarrhea. So then we realized that just providing water filters is not enough. The education part is important. Fostering better habit lifestyle is important. So we started our WASH training, water sanitation and hygiene, basically the training on personal hygiene. Then after we've done that, we realized that in some of the communities, the water source is just so far. Women were telling us that they have backache, even elderly women, sometimes they live, on their own, and their children have their own house. And even elderly would have to fetch water every day on their own. And it's costing them a lot of time and, physical health impact. So because of that, we also started building water pump system in those villages. So it's not complicated. It's about installing a pump near the water source, and then you do piping to a water tank that's near to their where they stay, and then from the water tank, water flow into through pipes into their respective homes. And so for the first time in many of the villages, they've got a tap that they can just turn on and have running water, and you can see the smile on their face. If you talk to the women especially, they will tell you how much difference it makes to their life.
It's life changing.
Yeah, it's a simple solution, but for them it saves them a lot of time, the hardships of carrying water, And those time that they save, they can do other things, laundry, with, take care of the kids and so on, and less health impact as well.
Because I think for those of us in the urban societies, we never think about getting water as back-breaking work, right? But for them,
Exactly.
it's just how it is, and they've just accepted it as is for how many generations already, I suppose, in this case?
Many generations, yeah. And you're right. We take water for granted, and just a day of, water cut, we would, be
Making
suffering.
noise.
Yeah,
That's true.
and it's such a basic need, and it's also regarded as a human right for every human being to have access to clean and safe water, and to have access to water within vicinity of your home, without having to walk, 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
I think we've experienced that during the water disruptions here in the Klang Valley, where we have to get our pails. Sometimes have to walk pretty far to the water tanker or the water source to get the water to come home so that our family can actually wash.
Yeah.
We've
It's,
already
it's such a
experienced
pain.
a day in the life of someone who lives in an Orang Asli kampung. Yeah.
Exactly. I actually, there were some villages that they use pretty big, water bottles, because they want to save time, going back and forth. So I try, and just walking 10 steps, I got really exhausted. Yeah, it's just horrible. Yeah.
Not easy. Now, Dr. Teh, can you share with us a story about how the Cup project changed someone's life for the better?
Yeah. There are actually a lot of stories around. The longer we work with those communities, the more we hear, how life changed after we provide them with access to clean water. But in particular, this gentleman in Kampong Cherampak, his name is Nordin. He's a middle-aged gentleman. And so we work with his village early 2020, January 2020. We work with the community in the spirit of Gotong Royong to install water pumps and piping water tanks, and we have taps going into every single house. And of course, the villagers were happy that, and many houses started to set up their own washroom. Now that you have water tap, you can have your personal washroom, even though it's very simple with just some tubs, surrounding it. But the interesting part is after MCO in June 2020, we immediately went into those villages that we know just to check on how they are, after the MCO. And when we arrived at Kampong Cherampak, Nordin's village, we saw a pretty decent plot of vegetable, farm next to his house. And I was curious. I was like, wow, hey, you've got like a lot of long beans and, kacang tanah, and okra and things like that. So I asked him, like, what inspired you to farm? And is it because of the MCO and, sort of food supply and things like that? And his answer is yes, definitely MCO was the motivation of getting him to farm his own vegetable. But he said he has tried multiple times in the past as well. But it, he failed pretty badly in the past because of water scarcity. So what happened is, in the past, he had to go to the water source, the well or the pond, to carry water buckets and come back, near to his house to water his farm plot. And it is a lot of work. He got tired, and not just tired. A couple of years ago, he suffered from leprosy. And leprosy is another concern that we see, health issues that's connected to personal hygiene. So he was diagnosed with leprosy. He was under medication, but that kind of weakened his body, and he couldn't do heavy work, very long, probably 15-20 minutes. He would need to take a rest. So on top of, having to carry water, and his body is now weakened, so he basically gave up a couple of times of his vegetable farm. But this time around, it was successful. Like the vegetable were growing pretty well because he could use the water pump every day after pumping and fill up the tank. The pump is still there and it's solar based. It doesn't require additional cost. So he would use the pipes to water his farm, and because of that, his vegetables are all growing very well. And when he grew a lot of vegetable, he couldn't finish it. He offered to his family members in the kampung, and they couldn't finish them as well. And he started to sell those vegetables to the plantation workers. And he could make about around 60 ringgit per week, and that's about 200 to 300 ringgit a month. And for an orang asli, that additional income, it's very, very substantial. So we were just very, very happy to hear that story and to understand that water is not just for drinking and cooking and for health. It's also helping them in farming and create food security for them.
Yeah,
that's really
I think
wonderful.
we don't really think about it. We think
Yeah.
about clean water as something to drink. That's all. And
Yeah.
and for health reasons. But we don't think
Yeah.
about the bigger picture where it helps them have access to food as well.
Yeah.
And a livelihood
Yeah.
for some of
Exactly.
them.
It's
Like she's
business,
earning
right?
money.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
But
that's a great realization for us as well.
yeah. Now, personally, Dr. Teh, why did you get involved in this initiative?
So I was medically trained, and I'm not practicing my medicine anymore, and that interest started even when I was in a campus. I was involved in a lot of social program, charitable work. And I discovered that that's really a calling in me, and a passion that's from within. So upon this discovery, at one point I've decided that I want to be involved full time in social work, in non-profit organization that would be able to empower less privileged communities and families. And doing this work actually give me a lot of joy and personal fulfillment. And working with communities, with families and children, and seeing how their life change, just continue to drive me to do what I do. Yeah.
Actually, speaking of seeing how others' lives, seeing their lives change, right? Do you ever go back to those kampongs, those 70 over projects, and see how things are going? Do they need to have any upgrades and things
Or
like this?
maintenance?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So what we realized over the years is we have decided to stay within the two districts that we have most of our work done. That's Pekan and Rompin district. And the reason why we decided to stay there is because changes and development, didn't happen overnight. It takes years, and we cannot just stop by providing clean water. After knowing these villages, we have moved on to look into other of their needs. So we've looked into their needs on energy. A lot of villages have no access to grid electricity. So we've started our initiative on providing solar lighting and solar power, right? We've also looked into a lot of issues of dropouts, children dropping out or out of the school, children. And so we've started with education initiative. And recently we've started with food farming in many villages as well as building toilet. The building toilet part is essentially part of clean water. So the interesting part is after they've got access to clean water, some of these villages would come to us and say, can you help us, with, toilets and washrooms? Because now they have got water. And before that, there's no point to have a water when you have no toilet. I mean, when you have no water access. Yeah. So that's an initiative we are also getting into.
Okay. All right. But in terms of the Communities Unite for Pure Water project, right?
Mhm.
Do you have maybe like a proudest achievement, the kampong that you're the most proud of?
Definitely. I mean, I wouldn't just pick one village, but we see amazing progression in villages that we work with over a period of time. There's this village that we started working with just about 2 years ago. It's called Kampong Terubing. And so we started with providing them with live straw water filter. We conduct wash trainings for especially for children and the mother. And then we work on the water pump. Um, and recently we're doing farming, vegetable farming project with them, with the access of with water access that they can water their farm plot. And now we are in the process of planning for a washroom. So you see that the changes that we see, of course, the women are very happy about how they don't have to fetch water every day, that water is accessible just in the house or just outside of the house. You see health improving. They don't complain about skin rashes, infection, diarrhea anymore. And their interest in vegetable farming grew so much because when you can, one of the major issue when you ask them, why don't you plant more vegetable? They would say the vegetable will die because it's so dry, the soil dry and hard. And now you see vegetable grown in the whole village. Every family has their vegetable plot, farm plot, which is very, very inspiring. And you also see growing population. So some of their children who grow up, at one point they moved out just because it's just very difficult to live in a village. But now we've seen their children moving back one after another and building their house because they have got access to all these basic needs. And this is a very, very good sign, for us.
As a medical
Yeah.
doctor, though, I mean, you've had medical training. Uh, will you at any point be doing some kind of research on, because one of the things about not having access to treated water, we hear about uh, children not developing properly physically and also mentally, I suppose, in many cases. Will you probably be doing some kind of study on this?
There are already many existing studies around how access to clean water or no access to clean water affect the growth of children, and the direct correlation is because when kids get diarrhea, right? Diarrhea is one of the major cause uh, that affect children's nutritional needs. They get malnourished because of diarrhea. And if they also get frequent sickness, infections, it definitely affects their growth as a child. So having better, sanitation, hygiene, and water access will contribute definitely to a better, growth of the children.
That means you're gonna see a sudden growth spurt in all the kids. Suddenly, one particular era, one particular time, all the kids got taller for some.
This generation is after water.
I know, right?
AW.
Yeah. Yeah, but another important factor is the nutrition aspect, right? And that's why the food farming is very important. A lot of orang asli today, if you ask them what do you eat, do you go out and buy a lot of vegetable? They don't, because they are pretty much short of cash. So what the money that they have usually is just saved to buy rice, because the villages that we work with, they can't plant paddy yet.
Mm-mm.
So the cash are used to buy rice. And so they, in terms of vegetable, they survive on very simple things like ubi kayu, pucuk ubi keledek, that's sweet potato, and some brinjals. That's all, right? So when you have water access, and then they learn about vegetable farming, now they're planting more vegetables. They're planting all sort of beans, tomatoes, they're planting fruits, papayas, and so on. Then that contribute to better nutrition for the family.
Plant protein. Plant protein. Yeah.
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 Finally, Dr. Teh, how can we, as regular Malaysians, how can we help to make a difference?
Yeah. I think as Malaysian, first thing is to be aware that there are still many orang asli villages and families out there who have no access to very basic needs like access to clean water, electricity, education. Having that awareness, I think it's a very important start. So if you are someone who'd like to know more, do drop by our website at globalpeace.org.my. Subscribe to our social media. Our handles are all Global Peace MY, Global Peace MY, and those will keep you updated. Of if we find new villages with no access to clean water, we would definitely be appealing for donation. Recently, we have this fundraising on building washrooms for 2 toilets, and we are very proud, that Malaysians and corporates, they come forward to donate. And secondly, I think if you have some time and energy that you want to contribute, you can sign up to be our volunteer. Of course, we are going into MCO, but after MCO, when we can travel again, it would definitely be helpful to have some volunteers who, have a day or two to spend in the villages to help us with our projects. So donations, volunteering, we do take in interns. If you're a university student looking to spend, a couple of months doing internship that gives you meaning, and learn about the situation, the plights of our less privileged communities out there, definitely you can sign up with Global Peace as well. Yeah.
Come, Bel. Let's just be done with this
Be
radio
interns,
thing.
yeah.
Become interns, man. I like that. Yeah.
All
Yep,
right.
you're
Well,
welcome.
thank you so much, Dr. Teh, for that.